Welcome back, college football fans, to the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog, the channel created by the college football fan for the college football fan, the channel where we examine, discuss, celebrate, and honor all things college football across the entire college football landscape. So whether you bleed black and gold or not, I've got you covered for all things college football, from north to south, east to west, and everywhere in between. Welcome, I'm your usual host, Blair Parks. It's great to be back with you here on the vlog. I've had a couple weeks off just to re-energize, reboot, recalibrate, recalculate. A lot of things going on. Telling you, life as it does just seems to happen. But what I got on tap for you tonight, my previous episode, I shared with you my top 5 most surprising teams of the 2024 college football season. So tonight is going to be the exact opposite. What I've got lined up for you, I will share with you my top 5 most disappointing teams of the 2024 college football season. But before I say anything else, thank you for all that you have done and will continue to do for the channel, especially for all of you who are coming back, those of you who are members, who have subscribed to the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. None of this would be possible without you. It's an absolute pleasure, me, an average Joe college football fan, to be with you, sharing my love and passion for all things college football with you. So thank you for all that you have done and what you will continue to do. If this is your first time joining me here on the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog, please like, share, rate, subscribe, click that notification button, and go ahead and spread the word. Tell your fellow college football fanatics, your family members, your colleagues, your friends to check me out here in the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. Even though it is the off season, there is plenty to talk about here on the channel. And lastly, before I dive headfirst into today's episode, I always ask for, welcome, and want your feedback. I want to keep you involved, so please get involved, exercise your college football voice, your right. Please light up the comment section below to anything that I share with you or present during this episode, and I promise I will get back to each and every one of you much sooner than later via those comments. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So here's the backstory on my top 5 list here of the most disappointing teams of the last college football season. And I'm also going to give you my first 2 teams out, or my honorable mention teams that maybe could have been on my top 5 officially, but just missed the cut, which is probably a good thing for them. But this is also what I'm going to do with you. When I share with you these teams, I'm going to go ahead and share with you preseason what their over/under projected win totals were via BetMGM. I'm also going to share with you if they happen to be ranked in the preseason AP poll that right before week 0 came and went. And I'm also going to share with you if yours truly predicted that they would earn a playoff berth or not. That does apply to some of them. And then I also will share with you their final record and some ups and downs, highs and lows during their season last year. All right, so let's go ahead and get into my honorable mention, my first 2 teams off the top 5 list. And I'm going to start off with my second team out. And even though overall it was a very solid season for them, but this is really on me. I was so high on this team, and there was good reason with all of the offensive firepower they had coming back. I'm starting off in the group of 5 with the Memphis Tigers. Over/under, they were projected to be at 9.5 victories preseason, and I did predict that they would earn a playoff berth representing the group of 5. I knew Boise State was going to be solid, but I don't think me or anybody else had, the had the outright knowledge to know what sort of season running back Ashton Jeanty was going to put before us. So I thought Memphis was going to go ahead and steal that bid as the representative of the group of five. Overall, their final record, including postseason play, they did go 11-2. Their 2 losses, one of those came against a Navy squad that was very, very solid. The other, kind of a ugly loss against UTSA, the Roadrunners. And now their highs, they did have a legit win on the road against a ranked Tulane team late in the season. And also, this is why I thought that they would have the head-to-head better, they'd be the better selection against a Boise State, is I did predict that they would go on the road to Tallahassee inside of Doak Walker Stadium and knock off the Florida State Seminoles, which they did, but that ended up not being the Florida State team that we thought they were going to be, which they may or may not be later on this list. So good victory for Memphis to still go to a Power 4 opponent, such as Florida State, and get a victory. And also in their bowl game, they did also defeat West Virginia, the Mountaineers, out of the Big 12. So for a group of 5 team to have not 1 but 2 victories over 2 Power 4 opponents, that's a pretty solid season. But they had to be put on this list as my second team out just because I did expect more from them. All right, so let me know what you think about that. Now, my first team out. Woo! This was difficult because I went back and forth between which team is going to be the first team out or which team is going to be number 5 on my list. And I'll go further in depth with that here very shortly. But my first team out, after much debate and soul-searching, looking inward, I'm going to go from the SEC with the Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma, now remember, this was their inaugural season as a member of the Southeastern Conference. They were projected at 7.5 victories preseason. They did start off in the AP poll ranked number 16, so there were some expectations for the Sooners down there in Norman, Oklahoma. Overall, they went 6-7, so a losing season for the Sooners down there in Oklahoma. Now, their big high last year, they did have that huge victory late in the year at home against Alabama, which got them to that 6-win plateau to be able to qualify for the postseason play. But then again, I mean, they were gift-wrapped a victory on the Plains at Auburn early in the season. So even if that would have stood pat, you knock off Oklahoma, that should have, or knock off Alabama, that should have been basically their 5th victory. And I know expectations maybe weren't college football playoff for Oklahoma when it came down to those who are realistic. And I'm sorry, a lot of you Oklahoma fans out there, no disrespect, but those of you, you know who you are, you have very unrealistic goals, okay? And a lot of you did coming into this season. I mean, a team that had basically 0 starters and 0 real snaps of experience along the offensive line, huge question marks at quarterback. Since then, Jackson Arnold has transferred out to Auburn, team I just mentioned. So there was a lot of uncertainty down there in Norman with the Oklahoma Sooners. So that's why they were my first team out. I told you all in my Crystal Ball preseason episode, this Oklahoma squad was a 4 or a 5 loss team. A lot of you raised your noses, told me to piss off or go pound sand. But I told you that's what was going to happen with this team, all right? Based on their schedule and what they had coming back on their roster. I mean, way too many unknowns compared to knowns, all right? So the first team off was Oklahoma, and I did say exactly why, all right? So now let's move why they were first team out rather than being number 5 on my official list. So now let's move into the top 5, my official 5 most disappointing teams from the 2024 season. Starting off at number 5 from the SEC, I got to roll with the Alabama Crimson Tide. All right. Now, I went back and forth. I almost put Alabama, my first team, out. But since Oklahoma defeated them straight up, they had to be my first team out and escape being officially on this top 5 list. So Alabama coming into the season, projected 9.5 victories was their over-under. Brand new coach in Kalen DeBoer, formerly at Washington and Fresno State, I believe. Into retirement went the GOAT, Nick Saban. So there were a lot of question marks with Alabama, but nobody saw this coming down there in Crimson Tide land. To start off, they were number 5 in the APC preseason poll. Overall, they went 9-4 on the year. Now, this wasn't a huge surprise to me, them not making the college football playoff. I did not predict that they would make it. I predicted they would go 10-2 with losses against Georgia and at LSU, which they actually won both of those games and still ended up with 3 regular season losses. Now, Alabama's good wins. I mean, they had solid wins at home against Georgia, against a very good Missouri team, and at LSU down there in Death Valley. But their losses, man, they were just so damaging that there's no way you can replace those great wins with those terrible losses. They lost at Vanderbilt and at Oklahoma. All right, now at Vanderbilt, at that time, Alabama was ranked number 1. That was a week after their big victory at home against Georgia, but I believe they were a 21-point favorite at Vanderbilt. Alabama does not lose those games, and if you are legitimately a college football playoff contender or a participant, you don't lose a game like that. And then to further compound it, you lose later in the season against a 5-5 Oklahoma team going in to the end of the year. So you don't lose those 2 games. You just can't. All right. And that was just way too much for Alabama to get into the college football playoff. I mean, the committee did get it right. And then to further back that up, that was really wrapped up with that loss in the bowl game against Michigan when they were again a 21-point favorite against the Wolverines. And I think Alabama's had enough of seeing Michigan because if you recall, the beginning of the 2024 calendar year began in the Rose Bowl with a loss to Michigan and then closed out with a loss to Michigan as well. So Alabama, number 5 on my list. And please let me know what you think about this list that I've compiled for you, my opinions, the facts that I present. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Light up the comment section. The dance floor is yours. So now moving on to number 4. I got to go from the ACC, the Miami Hurricanes. That's right. The U was supposed to be back. And this is the one that really kind of hurt me. Projected, they were at 9.5 victories preseason. Coming into the AP poll, they were ranked number 19 to start the season off. And yours truly, I did pick Miami to win the ACC and at that point automatically get into the college football playoff. So I just missed out on that. Their final record was 10-3 overall. I mean, Miami, it really came down to this. They had every tool in the bag you would need from an offensive standpoint. They had. But their defense was just so abysmal, they could not stop anyone or anything. And ultimately that cost them. I mean, Cam Ward, absolute stud. I think I would rather take him with the number 1 draft pick or the first QB drafted. That's just my opinion, But they had every opportunity. But they did, especially in the regular season. They did not face off with either SMU or Clemson, the two teams who did ultimately advance to the ACC title game, and both of them did advance to the college football playoff as well. Their losses during the regular season both came in conference losses on the road at Georgia Tech and at Syracuse, and that Syracuse loss basically is what kept them out of the college football playoff. Even with that one loss, I believe when it came down to tiebreakers, they would not have still gotten into the ACC title game. But there is no doubt that Miami, with one loss at 11-1, they would have gotten that at-large bid. There's no doubt about it in my mind. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I've got this one pegged to a T. All right? And in the bowl game, probably the best team that they played all year. They did lose against a very solid Iowa State team, an Iowa State team that I was very, very high on, that I did predict would get to the Big 12 title game, win the Big 12, and get to the college football playoff. They got close. A lot of people thought I was nuts, but hey, it almost came to fruition. So that's number 4 on this list is the Miami Hurricanes. Number 3 on my top 5 most disappointing teams of 2024. Also from the SEC, I got to roll with Coach Lane Kiffin and his boys, the Ole Miss Rebels, down there in Oxford. They were projected to be 9.5 wins over under. The AP poll for preseason had them ranked number 6. So just like Alabama, they were ranked in the preseason top 10. And I did pick Ole Miss to make the college football playoff as an at-large. When it came down to it, I believe that Ole Miss would have been more deserving than Alabama. That's why I picked Ole Miss over Alabama preseason. I did predict that Ole Miss would knock off Georgia, as they did. All right, so I was close on this one, but a little bit off. Overall, Ole Miss went 10-3, both regular season and postseason. Couple really good victories for the Rebels. As I mentioned, they did defeat Georgia, and also a very solid road win at upstart and surprising South Carolina, the Gamecocks. But their losses, just like Alabama's losses, there was no way that you could escape them and overlook them. I mean, the second to last game of the year, they go on the road to a very surprise upstart Florida Gator team in the Swamp and lose at Florida, which ultimately that loss probably also might have kept them out of the college football playoff. But the big one, they lost early in the season, I believe week 4 or 5 at home against Kentucky. The Wildcats came in to Ole Miss, got it done. And that Kentucky team did not go to the preseason. They did not get to that 6-win plateau. So those 2 losses, just too much to overlook for Ole Miss. It just was. I mean, their other loss, overtime down in Death Valley at LSU, not a bad loss, but at Florida and at home against Kentucky, you just can't look the other way. And once again, playoff contenders and participants who are legit, they don't lose those games. They just don't. All right? So that's my number 3 team is Ole Miss. Now, here we get down to the nitty-gritty, number 2 and number 1. So I don't think most of you are surprised of the teams that I've mentioned so far to this point. Maybe you've been in disagreement with the order that I have them. If that's the case, please comment below, light it up. I can't wait to hear from you. Like, share, rate, subscribe. So, and if there's something else here that I've missed, if you think I have a team too high or too low, or hey, I think this team should be on the list or this team should be off, please let me know. I can't wait to hear from you. So this might be a little bit of a surprise. At number 2, and I have went back and forth for a couple days between number 2 and number 1. Okay, y'all, you dirty minds out there, I know where you're going, all right? But at number 2 on my list, I changed that just shortly before going on air here this evening. I've got to go from the ACC, the Florida State Seminoles at number 2 on my list. Florida State was projected at 9.5 victories over under. They were in the AP preseason poll ranked number 10. So like Alabama, like Ole Miss, ranked in the top 10 at the beginning of the season. And yours truly, I did pick them as an at-large to get to the college football playoff. I did have 2 teams representing the ACC, both Miami and this Florida State squad. But man, oh man, was I wrong on this. I mean, there's not really a lot of things you can say that went right for Florida State this past season. I mean, when you rewind 2 seasons ago, how their hearts were broken down there in Tallahassee. Coach Mike Norvell and his boys who go undefeated, but yet get left out of the 4-team college football playoff bracket. They do not receive an invite due to some late end-of-season injuries to their quarterback. So starting this year, they're on everybody's radar. It's expanded to 12 teams. If that were to happen again, it would never happen again. So there was a lot of expectations down there in Florida State. And quarterback DJU Uiagalelei transferred back to the ACC once upon a time. He was at Clemson, and then he jettisoned up to the Pacific Northwest for 1 year in Corvallis with Oregon State. And now he came back to Florida State to kind of resurrect his career and just happened to burn out yet again and go down in flames. Overall, their record, they went 2-10 this past season. They only recorded one. That's right, one lonely victory over a fellow Power 4 opponent, and that was at home against the Cal Golden Bears, I believe. But maybe the biggest embarrassment, other than not going to the postseason after getting such a high preseason ranking, is they lost at home the last game of the season to their bitter in-state rival. Florida comes into Tallahassee, puts a whooping on the Seminoles to the tune of 31-11. When that kind of reversed the script from the previous 2 seasons ago, when Florida hosted Florida State, they go down to the swamp. Their quarterback, they're down to a second-string quarterback making his first ever start. This Florida team was desperate, sitting there at 5 victories. They needed a victory to clinch a postseason berth, came up short. So this past season, Florida absolutely returned the favor. So I've got Florida State number 2, which I know a lot of you are saying, how can you not have them number 1 on this list? I get it, but I chose another team. All right. And here it is. My number 1 most disappointing team of the 2024 college football season was, here we go, drum roll, out of the Big 12, the Oklahoma State Cowboys. That's right. If you watched my Crystal Ball predictions episode preseason, I was very, and I mean uber high on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. And how could you blame me? On both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, they were both top 5 in returning starters and returning production. I mean, this team was ready to rock and roll. They brought back their entire offensive line, and not to mention, running behind them, 2 seasons ago, the leading rusher in the nation, Ollie Gordon III. I mean, they have one of the best linebacker groups in the country. I mean, stud defense, stud veteran offense. Their schedule was tough, but definitely something that was that I thought they could navigate. But overall, they ended up going 3-9. They began in the AP preseason poll number 17, final record of 3-9, just like Florida State, above them in spot number 2. They did not qualify for the postseason. And really, nothing went right for the Cowboys this year down there in Stillwater, which is sad because when I lived for 6 months in Oklahoma, I was right between Norman and Stillwater, so I was very into Oklahoma collegiate sports at that time, and I really had a soft spot for Pistol Pete and the Oklahoma State Cowboys. I still do, but going 3-9, they registered zero victories in Big 12 conference play. So not even one conference victory. And the thing is, they didn't really have any legitimate injuries that you could say, well, that's what probably derailed their season. That is false. They were banged up here and there, but their major playmakers basically were healthy throughout most of the season. And none of their units were decimated by group injuries either. I mean, they just weren't. And to make it worse, the icing on the cake, the last game of the season, they're on the road in Boulder against Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. At that point, they know their season's over. They're probably just waiting for basketball season. And they go out to the tune of a 52-0 end of season loss against Colorado. So that season for Oklahoma State it couldn't get over sooner last season. And I feel terrible for them because they were one of my dark horses. I did pick Iowa State to win the Big 12, but I picked Oklahoma State as an at-large, and I thought they could really make some noise. Being that veteran, that experienced, I thought they might be one of the final 4 teams left standing. All right? So that's my list. Let me know if you agree or disagree and why. Hey, do you like where this team is, or do you think they're too high, they're too low? Oh, I think this team should have been on the list instead of this. Add them, take them out. Please let me know. I can't wait to hear from you. Subscribe, like, share, comment below, and I promise I will get back to each and every one of you much sooner than later. Especially click that subscribe button, click that notification button. I will be taking a week off, but I do plan on being back in 2 weeks for another off-season episode here from the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. I'm still kind of up in the air of what the subject is going to be, but I promise you're going to enjoy it. All right, so until then, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please, once again, like, share, subscribe, comment. Thank you for all you do. And until we meet again, be safe, be responsible, peace and prosperity. And as always, go Hawks. And I'll see you later on the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. Adios.